All right, great. Well, thanks everyone. It's great to be here, and thanks, Nikki. It's true that a lot has happened since Nikki and I last met. Um, so you know how immigrants confront the immigration system without anybody helping them? In the United States, 6 out of every 10 immigrants confronts the immigration system without an advocate, and that includes children. And statistics say that people are 10 times more likely to get the relief that they need when they have an advocate by their side. So, as an immigration lawyer for 20 and law professor for more than 20 years, I needed to become part of a solution. And so I created the first ever online scalable educational program to train immigrant advocates for justice. And it's amazing because my goal is really to, I have lofty goals. My goal is to model that we can have people other than in the United States, other than JDs, providing limited legal services, because there are so many people who don't have access to the legal system because they can't hire a lawyer. Lawyers have just priced themselves out of the market. So we need a new model. And my model is training paraprofessionals in limited, to do limited work. And in the United States, existing regulations allow for non-lawyers to provide limited legal services in immigration court and before the Department of Homeland Security. So my goal is to train 10,000 legal advocates using my online platform. And I'm offering the program through my university, Villanova University, which has allowed me to do this as a social entrepreneur, which, let me say, I think is even harder than being a social entrepreneur, because these are systems that are very hard to break. So I'm breaking education, higher education, and I'm breaking the legal system at the same time. So that's me. And I found it, some days I struggle, and I'm really lucky that I have a husband, a partner who's very supportive and kind of gets me through those times, because I must say that, like, if I weren't so passionate about this, and if I didn't see I see the future, I know that we can get there. But if I didn't see that and I didn't know that, I would have, there were so many times that I could have given up. And so I guess, as everybody in this space who is interested in entrepreneurism and breaking systems and thinking about new ways of doing things, I would just say that, you have to just keep going and keep fighting. And I'm not saying that I've succeeded. I haven't gotten to the end line yet, but I do find that, it's really the passion and the belief that this is going to make a better society in the end that keeps me motivated. And those hurdles, they're they're almost on a daily basis. There are hurdles. And so it's just a matter of jumping them and knowing that you're on the right track, and really feeling like those advocates, those people who support you, to keep them in the loop so that they continue to know what you're doing and can continue to be there supporting you. So those are my kind of global big lessons as someone who's still going through this process. So my program launched in August, and when I talked about it at my university, I'm offering it through the College of Professional Studies, and the College of Professional Studies is a college that teaches adult learners, and they usually have between 13 and 18 students in a class. So when they first started budgeting this, they wouldn't budget for more than 13 students. And it made it really hard because I'm not charging a lot in tuition, and I didn't have a lot in my budget because it was only 13 students. So I ended up, the first time it launched, I had 45 students. And now I already have 45 students for the start in January who want to start in January, and it's only October.
Wow.
So that was that's an example of these institutional hurdles. You know, they have processes and procedures and expectations based on their own experience. And it's really hard to get people to start thinking differently. So far I've made a little bit of progress. And I'm really hoping to expand it even more. I mean, like I said, my goal is 10,000 advocates. So maybe by the end of this year, I'll have 100, and then I'll keep moving in that direction towards 10,000. And the good thing about this program is it's really a model for how to train using online technologies. To train people to do legal services using online technologies. And even the immigration part, I see as being useful in other parts of the world as well. So I think it's the way I design the curriculum is it's very modular. And so I could pick it apart and repackage it for different audiences. So another goal would be to use this and share it with, students around the world. Nice. So that's who I am.
Why 10,000? Thomas asks why 10,000, and I'm, unmute yourselves and be part of the conversations, everyone.
So I picked 10,000 because at the time it felt very bold, and I felt like I needed to have a bold ambition because I was doing something that was new, and I think it's possible. In the United States, there are only 3,000 of these advocates. Before I started educating people, there are only 3,000, and that's over decades of the program being in existence. And I just kind of thought about all the places in our country where immigrant advocates are needed. And it's really like we have 50 states, and in every state there are immigrants who need access to legal services. And so that's how I chose that number. Marcus?
Michele, allow me for sounding a bit stupid, but what exactly does an immigration advocate have to do?
Yeah, so basically, under US regulations, you can become accredited through the immigration agency to provide limited legal services to immigrants, just like a lawyer would. So in the United States, we have one version of a lawyer. We don't have solicitors. So law school is very expensive. It's like $50,000 a year for 3 years after undergraduate. And so when students graduate from law school, they're carrying a lot of debt. I mean, that's one of the biggest problems in our country right now is the debt burden of graduates from college and law school. So because they have so much debt, it's really hard for them to then go out and serve the poor. Mm. But these regulations allow for people to, and I'm a law professor, and I've worked on this curriculum with other law professors. So we're basically creating an online legal education. I mean, I wouldn't say that to my law school colleagues because they would be freaking out. But basically, that's what I'm doing. I've been teaching for 20 years, and I know how to teach the law. And so I'm just teaching it to a new audience in a different way and doing it online so that it's scalable. And the whole curriculum is only $4,000 as opposed to $150,000 for law school. And the people who graduate will be authorized as long as they work for a not-for-profit organization or they volunteer for a not-for-profit organization. They can do everything that a lawyer can do in immigration proceedings, which are administrative proceedings in our country. So they can't go to federal court and litigate in federal court or even in state court, but they can litigate just like a lawyer does in immigration court because it's an administrative agency, and the administrative agency allows people who are non-JDs who have this special training to be able to advocate. It's just that no one has ever thought about figuring out how to ramp up that number and how to do it in a scalable way in terms of training. And so my training, I think, is really the thing that's revolutionary, because I'm taking my law, all my experience as a law professor. And like I said, I've worked with I have 25 people from I have a social worker, I have a historian, I have someone who works with people who've suffered from trauma. I have a retired immigration judge, all of whom have been helping to craft a curriculum that's very holistic and very focused on user-centered design and the competencies that we need people to have when they graduate. So I was really lucky. At the beginning, I got a grant from the MacArthur Foundation, and that allowed me to organize meetings with stakeholders. And so I met with people who would be employing the people who graduated from my program. And together we came up with a list of competencies that we needed the graduates to have when they graduated. So this is all user-centered design. And I'm sure you've spoken about user-centered design before. I implemented it in education, which is very rare in higher education, at least in the US, for people to think about what the student's going to do when they graduate.
Yeah.
And so this entire program is entirely focused on the student and on the end product, like what I want the students to know when they graduate. And I'm really lucky because LSAC that's the organization in the United States that runs the law school admissions test. So they're like the key organization in the US that knows about assessing legal knowledge. And they're working with me pro bono to come up with assessment tools for my program, so that not only am I teaching them using user-centered design, but I'm also collecting the data to prove that my students know what I want them to know. So like the whole design of the curriculum is very innovative. And for higher education in the US, like I haven't heard of anyone doing this. So I'm hoping to start like a new movement even in terms of how to teach toward mastery, right? Like teach towards knowing what we want the students to learn and do, rather than just the professor deciding that something's like interesting for the students to read, and so they assign it,
Did I just hear you right that you've developed a program where they can graduate for 12 grand instead of 150? And
They can graduate for 4,000.
Well, not 4,000 a year, 4,000 in total.
In total. But, yeah. Can you believe that?
You must have acquired a lot of enemies in the system.
Michele, what are the entry requirements for the program? Do you have to take people who've got a college degree or law or something?
So right now we have no entry requirements.
Then why only 10,000 people? Surely this could be every single immigrant.
It's true. And when I thought 10,000, I thought it was lofty, but it's true. Like, I'll admit to you that I think that this can like be used around the world.
Yeah.
And like you said, immigrants can learn the law.
Yeah.
I mean, if they had $4,000, then they could learn the law themselves and at least understand, the system in which they're that they're confronting. I know. It's like an example of just giving, it's like democratizing the law. There's a global movement it's called legal empowerment. And it's basically thinking about like, how do you get information about the law to the people? And there are, NAMATI is the organization that does legal empowerment around the world. And they're working on training like community paralegals to go out into villages in Uganda and other places and learn, teach people what the law is. And this is an example of that in the US. And I think it's really the start of what will be a movement over the next few decades to get the law to the people, because we're all subject to it. Like, why can't we know what the law is? It's crazy.
So Nikki's right. As people start getting aware of the momentum which you're gathering, especially those who want to maintain this hierarchy of lawyers and the costs of acquiring their qualifications? How are you going to protect, I suppose, the integrity of the program such that the establishment doesn't start discrediting it?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And I started my career as a lawyer in a big firm in Manhattan. And I recently reached out to them and hired them pro bono to help me strategize on that exact question. Because frankly, right now, I'm kind of doing it under the radar. Like, it's not that I'm hiding it, but people haven't really noticed it. And once people notice it, I'm sure there'll be resistance. But I should say that there's a lot of interesting movement in the US in response to access to justice. So in the last month, we have 50 states, so we have a long way to go, but 2 states decided that they were going to start to allow non-lawyers to provide limited legal services. So Utah and Arizona. Oh, and Minnesota. So now, because Minnesota just did it like 2 weeks ago, I forgot about them. So now we have 3 states that, and it's recent, like within weeks, that they're voting, the state bars are voting to allow limited legal services. And it's because in the United States, and I'm sure it's the same in England, although I'm not up to date on the stats. In the United States, 86% of people in civil legal proceedings. So criminal proceedings are separate. In the United States, they get a free lawyer. So we're only talking about civil proceedings, but they're huge. Evictions, family law, custody, debt type related things. These are things that can make someone's, like, you can lose your house and you not have a lawyer. Like 86% of people with civil legal issues in the United States don't have access to a lawyer or don't have the legal information they need. And so the system needs to be fixed. And there will be resistance, but I'm hoping that I've kind of positioned myself at the start of what's going to be a movement. And, really it came from studying Clay Christensen's work. Are you guys familiar with the work of Clayton Christensen? Yeah, so he recently passed away. He was a professor at Harvard Business School, and he's written a lot on disruption. And I think it's important, if you're in this field, to understand the theory of disruption, because what he says in his book, and he gives a few examples, is that the incumbents will try to prevent you from doing what you want to do, but over time, the regulations fall. And that's what we're seeing in Utah, Minnesota, Arizona. And there's a lot of other examples of how this has happened in other fields as well. Like if you think about Uber, the regs are now changing because of Uber. And he gave an example of the airline industry in the United States and how it changed because they were disruptive entrants. So to me, it's always been very helpful to understand the theory. And I think it's really helpful for me to understand the theory, especially in an environment when you're an entrepreneur and there's so much pressure on you to go with the status quo, to at least know, you need that source of knowing that it's going to work out, even though these people are fighting against you. So.
Michele, I have a question. Can you maybe briefly demo it and show us how this kind of thing looks like and works?
The course?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Can I just run inside and get my get something, and then I'll put it on my I'll bring up Blackboard.
Yes, very good.
I'm just gonna hide my screen for a minute.
Of course. What a display of passion.
Yeah, great.
Amazing.
Yeah, tremendous.
How are you guys doing?
Is it Niall or Neil?
Niall.
It's Niall, yeah.
Niall, where are you right now?
Well, not quite where my image suggests I am, but no, I'm in the centre of London. I'm, I don't know, around Old Street that way.
Yeah, yeah, my office used to be just about there.
Oh, okay. All right. Where are you now?
I'm now in Wimbledon.
Okay. Not too far away.
No.
You guys
Sorry.
should meet.
Sorry, Nikki, say again.
I said you guys should meet.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, I'm just thinking that. It's,
Are they think-alikers?
yeah. Well, Wimbledon's so close. I mean, it's what, half an hour on the tube from Old Street, so very close by.
Yeah, if you want to get on that horrible tube.
True. I think I'd rather have an hour in the car.
Yeah, ditto. Ditto. And then an hour looking for somewhere to park.
It's a lovely part of London, though, down in Wimbledon.
It's okay. It's okay. Do you live there? No.
Yeah, we do now. We were in St Albans for a while, but now about 5 years ago we moved into the centre.
Oh, tremendous.
Michele, you're back.
Yeah. So, I'm sharing. Do you see the Villanova University?
Yes, yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, good. So this is, so let me just start with a little disclaimer. My university uses a system called Blackboard, which is their learning management system. And I hate it. It's really clunky and very old. So I've had to work within it. And I think if I were to do it on a different using a different learning management system, it would be even better than it is now. So I just want to kind of note that before I show you what I have. Hold on. Okay, so this is like the kind of landing page for the program. And so I talk about what I'm doing and how the program is set up. And then in each, I have a lot of videos that I've recorded that supplement what I'm teaching. So you can see that the curriculum is divided up into 3 14-week modules, and each module is made up of 2 sessions, 2 7-week sessions. And that's basically because my research about online learning says that people, in online courses, it's better to have shorter segments. So I made 2 7-week sessions with a 1-week break in between. And then the other thing about the modules is that students if they finish a module, they get a certificate from the College of Professional Studies. And you don't have to do the entire program in order to provide value to the community. So I've organized the curriculum so that even if someone just took module 1, they would be able to provide value to the community by accompanying immigrants. And what that means is even if they couldn't legally represent immigrants, immigrants need a lot of support as they integrate into society. And just being able to like bring them to register their children for school, or help them to open a bank account, or drive them to and help them find a place to worship. Those are all things that my immigrant clients need. And so the first module is designed to teach people to work successfully with and accompany immigrants. And when you take module 1 and finish those two sessions, you'd earn a certificate in immigrant accompaniment. Then if you go on to module 2, that trains you to become a partially accredited representative. So I told you that the regulations allow for lawyers, for non-lawyers to provide legal services. Well, there are two levels of authorization. One is for people who are partially accredited, and that means they're able to represent clients before the Department of Homeland Security with applications, like affirmative applications, like a work authorization or naturalization. If they want to become a citizen of the US, they would be able to do that as a partially accredited representative. And then if you finish module 3, that is designed to train people to become fully accredited representatives. And that has a lot of trial advocacy skills. And I actually worked with a colleague. He's the director of trial advocacy in Rutgers Camden. And he also is the author of the book that I'm using called Modern Trial Advocacy. And he travels around the world training lawyers in trial advocacy. And he helped me develop the curriculum for the trial advocacy part of this. So I have like top-notch people helping me because we all are committed to the issue of immigrant justice. So that's how the curriculum is designed. So like I said, if you take module 1, you get a certificate in immigrant accompaniment. If you take module 2, you get a certificate in immigrant advocacy. And if you take module 3, you get a certificate in immigrant trial advocacy. And if you take all 3, you get also a program certificate. So you would earn 4 university certificates. And each module, and students pay the tuition as they go. So they don't have to even invest the $4,000 that Nikki said earlier. If they only want to take module 1, that only costs them $1,280. And each module costs $1,280. And then the other thing that I did, which is very exciting for me at least, is I unbundled how we teach. So in most courses, most university courses, you take individual courses, and then it's up to the student to figure out how all the material relates to one another. What I've done here is I've created learning activities, and each learning activity combines more than one of the course topics. So instead of organizing the course as topics taught by different professors, I had the professors work together, and I worked with them because really I did a lot of the kind of development of the course, but I worked with people who come with different specialties to help me figure out how best to teach something in their area. So we're teaching all of these course topics within the course of the curriculum, but they're kind of melded together so that the students see how they work together. So I'll give you an example. One of the first exercises that the students do is in interviewing and counseling. I ask them to interview someone about a culture or religious tradition. And that's because another one of the topics is the stranger, understanding the stranger or the immigrant in history and religious tradition. And another is cross-cultural understanding and case planning. So for the activity of interviewing someone, they engage in a case planning. So they plan what they want to do to interview the client. Then they engage in the interviewing process about a culture or history or historical tradition. And then they write a memo to the file after their interview. And then they give us a video clip of the interview afterward. So I'll show you an example. And so all the activities are tagged with these course topics. So the students know when they engage in the activity, which of the course topics they're going to be learning. So even that is very revolutionary for teaching, for higher ed. Like usually in law school, you'll take one course in interviewing and counseling, another course in immigration law, another course in case planning, and another course in trial advocacy. But it's up to the student to figure out how they all work together. Here, I figured that out for them, and I give them activities that involve more than one course topic. And then, what else can I, okay, so now let me show you an activity. So now, this is module 1, session 1. So the first time the students are introduced to the program. And you can see on the left, I have 7 units in the program. And each unit has a title, like a theme to it. And so the first theme is why people migrate. And then understanding the global migration phenomenon, migration and culture, interviewing, reception and contributions by migrants, migration yesterday and today. So that's like a historical thing. And then interviewing about migration history. That's actually one of the best exercises, because the students engage in research about their own family's migration story. And just to share something which is really cool. So they have access to ancestry.com through our library. And one student last week, when I was reading her homework, realized that one of her great grandfathers married the sister of Pocahontas, who's like this amazing historical figure. And it was only through that research that she realized she was related to Pocahontas. So it's very cool to engage in that research and find your story and start thinking about your ancestors in the context of their own migration story. Like, what got that guy to get on a ship and come here? And what was it like? He was the first, so her ancestor was the first white man to marry a Native American. And it was really impactful to her to know that that was part of her history. And then you can start to empathize with the immigrant when you start seeing it as yourself. And that's the important thing that I'm trying to get out of this module, for people to empathize and see the connection. So I'll give you an example. So this is migration and culture. So this is a unit. So in the 3rd week of the semester, hopefully, the students, by the way, I organize it by unit and not week, because the program is asynchronous. Students can do it at their own pace. As long as they finish the whole session by the end of the 7th week, they can do it at their own pace. So here we have each unit. I start with a picture and a quote. And then there's a roadmap video by me that explains what you're doing in this unit. And then each of the units has learning goals that I'm very specific about what I want the students to know, be able to do, and value at the end of each unit. So again, that's very aligned with learning sciences and how students learn best, but it's also not a traditional practice in higher education. So I'm changing the way it's taught. And then I have 3 activities that they engage in this week or this unit. So one is cultural competency. You click on that and you get to the assignments on cultural competency. And usually it's readings, watching videos, maybe listening to podcasts. Here they're reading the Peace Corps workshop workbook on cultural competency, pages that we've selected. And then there's an iceberg exercise that they do. So what about their culture is apparent at the top of the iceberg and what's underneath and hidden? And they each think about it from their own perspective and thinking about these aspects of their own culture. And so this is an example of the iceberg that I give them. And then they have to fill it in and hand it back. And they upload it onto Blackboard. There's my, okay, let me go back. And then the other thing I use, which I love this technology, it's called Voicethread. And it's a program that students can use to record their own voice and other people can give feedback to them. So I have them record a voice thread about their work on the iceberg exercise. And one of the reasons that I use Voicethread, and one of the things I've heard from my students, is it's really good at building community, because this is an online course. but the students are coming to it in part because they want to be part of a community of like-minded people. So I use Voicethread so that you can hear each other's voice and like engage with them at that level. So you're not only reading what they say, but you're hearing them. And the other thing that the students do is they give us their videos so you can see them in action. And then I have a quiz. This is a quiz that I worked on with LSAC. So I have objective feedback on what they're learning. And this is one of the 3 exercises they do in Unit 3. So the second exercise they do in Unit 3 is interviews. So this is where they're planning an interview, and they do a reading. I made a video on the stages of an interview. They watch another video. I wrote a few pages on how to draft interviewing questions. This is the assignment. They have to make a plan. And then I give them a rubric. This is another thing that's not as typical in higher ed, is I've created rubrics that I'm going to use, that I use to score and to give feedback on everything that the students hand in. And I give them the rubric ahead of time so they know what I'm assessing them on. Because here my goal is mastery. Like I want to give the students all the tools they need to be successful. Like I don't want to hide the ball. These are students who are all dedicated to providing services to immigrants. And I want them all to succeed. So I'm really being proactive in giving them the tools they need to do that. And then you'll see like in week 4, they conduct the interview. They conduct an interview, and then I'm teaching them about how to, this is another way that someone can be useful in the community even after Module 1, because this is about how to protect immigrant communities from raids by ICE. So what do families need to know to be prepared in case they get picked up as an undocumented immigrant? And so I give them resources so that they can learn how to do know your rights sessions, so that people have the information. This is another thing about democratizing the law. Like I'm giving them information so that they can then teach communities about how to prepare for an ICE raid. Oh, sorry about that. And I realize that I've been talking a lot, so I should probably stop at some point and see if you guys have any questions.
It's just mind-blowing. I feel like usually when I look into law books, when you don't speak Latin and when you don't, I don't know, say goodbye to your friends for a year and just read that stuff to understand that sort of language, you don't even have to open it. And I'm so far away from being a lawyer and understand that language. And when you browse through, I feel like, oh, wow, this is translated. This is what the world's been needing for. Amazing. How much of work is that? How many years of work do we see here?
Yeah, so, okay, so I never stop working. Like that is one of the things I'm realizing about myself, but I'm really, really, really passionate about it. So I've been working on it probably like intensely full time for at least 3 years. And before that, it was on my mind since I met Nikki, like how many years?
I remember that.
Yeah, so, and a lot of it, frankly, is really my life's work, if you think about it. Like I've been teaching law students how to represent immigrants for 20 years. And so a lot of this is a repackage of my life's work of pulling that information and making it accessible to students in a really tangible way. And I think that because I have that experience of teaching law students for such a long time, and I know the hurdles and the kind of pain points for them, I was able to proactively address them in this curriculum. And really, it's so robust. Like it's much more than I can ever teach my law. Like I wish I could teach my law students all of this, but I can't because I don't have that much time with them.
We have Johan in the room. He's a patent examiner for the European Union, sorry. And I feel like he's about to quit his job and start doing this for intellectual property.
Yeah, I mean, I really love this format that you presented. And, you know, in patent law is really a struggle to how to say, make it exciting, you know, like how do you teach patent law? And because I tried at university also, you know, I mean, they're sending us patent examiners to different universities to try to present, you know, what is patent law, why you should work in this field, to try to come and work for the European Patent Office. And I really like your format, and it's really, I think, inventive, the way you can teach the science, which is, you know, not really like, they're not really examples and use cases, but it's somehow more theoretical, philosophical, to make it attractive. So you really gave me some ideas, actually.
Okay. Yeah. And I must say that, like, as the students move, this is the first unit. So as they move through, it gets more practical, right? So it does have those case studies and
so case law and these kind of things.
Yeah. One thing that I'll show you, which I'm also, I realize we don't have that much time, but I created this. I also believe that you can systematize this practice a little. So I've created a lot of templates, you know, like an interview template and a template for going to court with like your checklist of things to think about and how to plan, and even how to analyze a case. Like I created systems over the years that I've put into this course so that students, like, one of my goals is to create like a mindset so that every time they're approaching a problem, they have this frame in which to analyze it. And so that's kind of later on in the curriculum.
Fantastic.
I had a question as well, Michele, if I may, and it's around, I mean, one of the challenges I find with leaders, I'm sure many of us find the same thing if we're in sort of more of an educational session, that it's very difficult to get people to apply in a live setting what they're learning. So it's one thing to take on knowledge, it's another thing to be able to apply that. And it sounds like you're making a very good link with that, with the way you're doing your course. But does some of the sessions in the courses, in the units, do they have role plays, you know, where they're really getting in a situation of being in front of you know, someone has an immigrant problem?
Yeah, so we have exercises. So the whole course is asynchronous, as you can see. So they work on it at their own pace, but I also have office hours once a week where students can like check in with me and ask questions, and we often do those kind of role plays in those sessions. We also sometimes bring in guest speakers to do what I call hot topics in immigration law during those live sessions. But even some of the, like, it's really interesting that you can think differently about like resources in an online setting. So for example, one of the things I incorporated into the curriculum is professional development, because I want people, and also the immigration ecosystem. Like I want people to understand all the resources in their local communities that are available to support immigrants. So one of the first exercises in session 2 of module 1 is to like identify 3 to 5 organizations in your community that help immigrants. And then the next week, they reach out to that organization and introduce themselves and see if they can do an informational interview. And then they plan for the interview, and then they conduct the interview in their own communities, and they upload the video, and we give them feedback on the video. So on their interviewing skills based on the video. So it's very active, even though it's an online program. There are activities that then send them away to do something and then reflect on it and come back and tell us what you learned. And it's really cool because now, you know, students in New York are learning what's going on in Virginia, and like you're making connections and you're seeing, you know, there are models. Like just a few weeks ago, we had this model from Pennsylvania, and there were all these people in the course who were not in Pennsylvania, but they learned about it. And we were like, look, you could be doing this. It's a grassroots thing. You could be doing it in your community. And so there's this cross, you know, germination of ideas. And that's another benefit of having it online and being national.
That's fantastic.
And potentially international.
Yeah,
You know?
it's a great example. Thanks.
Any questions? Room is open for you guys.
Yeah, I haven't been monitoring the chat, so just raise your hand.
Yeah, I picked questions from the chat in the meantime. I'm blown. I have to say I'm blown. And I'll connect you with Michele, and you can take it from there. And Michele, I feel like with you on, you might have someone in your inbox as a good sparring or be a good sparring partner to do the exact same thing for IP law and opening us up. Say it again.
I think Thomas had a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna wonder, like, what kind of help would you need right now? How can we support you best?
Oh, that's great. So I want to scale. So what I need is help with technology. I want to figure out ways to standardize the feedback that I give to my students. That's one thing. So, and I also need, like Marcus said earlier, to develop a pipeline and to like get people behind this so that when the resistance comes, there's enough momentum to keep it moving forward. And I want to do other verticals. Like now I'm thinking about evictions. Like in the United States, there are going to be so many evictions after the COVID stuff lifts. Like a lot of states have put in moratoriums on evictions for the short term, but they're not going to last forever. So there are going to be millions of, you know, thousands of families that could potentially lose their homes because they don't have an advocate helping them navigate an eviction. So, and then, you know, media, I mean, like think about everything that a startup needs. Like I'm one person. I need administrative support.
Michele, doesn't the university help you?
They do, yes.
You'd have thought they'd throw resources at you, because potentially you are the pipeline for students to then take a proper degree at $50,000 a year, which gives the university income. Surely you're the pipeline for the university.
Yes, and the university is very supportive, and this aligns a lot with the university's mission. The university is a Catholic and Augustinian institution. So, and we were founded to teach Irish immigrants who had just migrated to the Philadelphia area. So I think that the biggest challenge I've had at the university is to help them to understand like what I'm trying to do at the scale that I'm trying to do it. Like I said, like their expectation was that I was going to have 15 students. And so they gave me the resources that I would need for 15 students. And I have this clunky learning management system, which, you know, doesn't allow me to, you know, it takes so much time for me even to provide feedback to students because I have to download a document. You know, like I'm using Google Classroom at the same time I'm using this, and Google Classroom is amazing. It's like so easy, and you just, you know, you can even put in your like, you know, the comments you want to give, and then just pull it over, and you know, like that's what I need. I need that kind of technology and apply it in law.
Why don't you just use Google Classroom?
Well, because I can't, because I don't want to make it available to the world. You know, I need to, the university has some copyright concerns.
You need a lawyer.
Yeah, I need a copyright lawyer. That's actually another thing.
You need an IP lawyer to help you through that.
Yeah, so
Michele,
yes.
thank you so much. That was amazing. As I said before, I'll connect you with the people. There's a recording of the session. Thomas asked that he wants to bring it to Texas. I don't know if you know Cheryl Vinerick. She's the immigration lawyer of TED. I feel like there are a lot of people who would be interested in partnering and rolling this out. My question goes back to the beginning. I think you can add the 0 to the 10,000 easily, or maybe 2.
Easy.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. And that's how you guys can help. And Texas, yes. I mean, the program's online, so people can take, like I have students in California, I have students in Oregon. And if we just raised, for example, I just raised $50,000 from a foundation, and that will fund 10 students, like 10 advocates. If each of those advocates represented 1 client a month, you know, think about that. That's like over 12 months, 10, it's like amazing the exponential impact this program can have with just an investment of, you know, $50,000. So
wonderful. And Johan is also chairman of the Rotary Club in his region. So I see a lot of spark ignited here. Michele, thank you so much for opening this week. It couldn't have been opened any better. I send so much love, and I'm proud and I'm excited. I cannot remember when I've seen such a display of passion in someone's face, and in the last hour, that was just beautiful. Thank you so much.